We sent one live case only. Let's see what the problem is. I've cast the chart now.
He's only calling again and again.
No, no, we'll do that. So just now, Preeti Ben has just sent one case. Her son has misplaced his office ID card, okay, because of which he can get fined quite heavily. He remembers that he had kept it in the glove compartment of the car last night, okay, and as of now, it is not there. Okay, so that is the case. So I have just now cast the chart. I will share that chart here. Problem is, when you see the chart, you will understand. Those guys have made it so complex that you actually I need to segregate it. It will take another 5-7 minutes, so I'm not wasting time on that. Let's just see इस पे अभी live करके देख सकते हैं. Okay. So ये है chart. Now let's try to simplify it as much as possible. अभी Udayam, if you see Udayam is here. Okay. If you see the Arudam is here. Arudam is here. कविपू कहाँ है? कविपू is here. इधर अभी कविपू लिखते हैं, so you'll have to be a little listening. Kavipu is here. Now, if you see here, planet up this, you all are not used to this software, that's why I'm doing it for you. Mercury is approaching Udayam. Saturn is approaching Arudam. Sun is getting caught by Kavipu. Okay. So if you see Mercury is approaching Udayam. Mercury is approaching Udayam. Saturn is approaching Arudam. And Kavipu is catching Sun. Okay. Now let's try to analyze this. Again, same thing. Which house? Saturn. What is seated in it? Venus. Okay. Let's just keep this in mind. And what is approaching it? Mercury. Identity card comes under stationery, comes under any sort of communication. So identity card is also Mercury. Venus is also in a way stationary. And the identity card has the person's face, so that is Venus. So wo bhi aa gaya. So let us take that. Saturn is related to career. Okay. Now Saturn is ruling over which houses? This house, 12th house of loss. Seated where? Where is Saturn seated? Here. So Saturn is seated in the 11th house. So that is good in a way. Okay. Where else is it seated? Here. Again 12th house. Okay. So this story, let's not dig deeper just now, but let's see the story. Basically, the identity card related to the career, that is office, okay, has been lost. Double idhar aa raha hai. Okay, because of which Saturn, which is the karak of bitterness, let us say, is affecting the 11th house of gains. Question verified? Okay. Now, now what we have to see is 8th house lord. So this is 7, this is 8. 8th house lord has to be in some way connected over here, because 8th house is the house of loss. Anything which is lost over there is seen from 8th house. Okay. So 8th house lord कौन सा है? Mercury. कौन सा planet approach कर रहा है? Mercury. So 8th house lord is approaching Mercury. 8th house is the house of loss. Now Mercury का क्या status है? So if Mercury is here, Mercury is seated in the 2nd house. Okay, it is ruling over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th house, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th house, and 8th house. 5th house, among so many things, is your what you do. Some this thing. Okay. Now, where will you find it? So basically, it is said that this is where it was lost, and this is where you are supposed to find it. Okay, 8th house. Lost in Udayam, find in Arudam. Find in 8th house. 8th house ka lord is Mercury. Mercury is seated in this thing with Venus. Venus is car. Is anyway 4th house connected 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 4th house. यहाँ पर Jupiter बैठा है. यहाँ पर राहु भी बैठा है. मैं ये बाद में करूँगा because there are 10 things which are coming in front of my eyes. So if I do it just now, after the class I will analyze it, put it on the group, and I'll talk to you also in half an hour. So we'll get it. But मुझे ऐसा roughly लग रहा है मिलने वाला है करके, because if you see 11th house, which is this one, this is the 11th house. This is the house of gains. Okay, this is the house of gains. जहाँ पर Saturn बैठा है, which is the Udayam Lord. So Udayam Lord is seated in the house of gains. So that is one plus point. दूसरा thing, whenever Jupiter is in the Udayam, उसको शुभ बोलते हैं, शुभ. So वो मिलेगा. And कहाँ पर मिलेगा उसका ये connection यहाँ पर, not here, basically what I'm saying is this house, 8th house and 7th house पे मिलेगा. And who will be able to help? So 1, 2, 3, 4. This is where the help will come from. Rahu is also low level worker. कोई प्रीति बहन कोई some tell me हाँ.
He was just asking me झाड़ू वाले का नंबर दो because वो वहाँ झाड़ू निकालता है.
झाड़ू वाले के पास है. झाड़ू वाला will be able to help. Okay, because see how it is. ये कविपु है ना, ये 7th पे बैठा है. 7th is the opposite person, so it is something related to the opposite person. Sun सुबह उगता है. झाड़ू वाला सुबह आता है क्या? Somebody see now, opposite person house 7th house, जहाँ पर कविपु बैठा है, it is catching sun. That is some opposite person who comes in the morning is the one who will be able to help. This is the 4th house. If he calls up this,
गाड़ी धोने वाला आता है और एक झाड़ू वाला.
हाँ बस ये दोनों में से कोई तो भी होगा. दूसरा what I can see here is because see Udayam से 7th house में कविपु है. Okay, जहाँ पर sun बैठा है. Sun is also ruler of this house only. And it is seated in the 12th house of loss. And you will find help from this house of 4, which is Venus. So Venus is the ID card, which is seated in the Udayam. You will get help related to Venus. Okay. From Kavipu, which is catching some person, opposite house person, who comes in the morning. Okay, and Rahu is a class 4 type of Jhadu wala, all those people come in this thing. I'm just trying to see whether moon is getting connected somewhere. Okay, so moon is getting connected to the 10th house. 10th house, like I told you, is the second this thing.
Chief Minister.
Second Udayam, barabar? Second Udayam. So moon is seated in the second Udayam. So some connection with moon over there, and internal moon is seated here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th house. जहाँ पर Mars बैठे. So Mars is brother. Okay. So something he is discussing about his loss with his brother.
Yes.
Okay, he is discussing his loss with his brother. ऐसे हो रहा है. Moon is loss.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So now at the same time, if we see whether how serious is this, so house of loss is the 8th house from the Udayam. This is Udayam, so this becomes the 8th house. Eighth house lord is Mercury. Okay. Now, Mercury is debilitated. If you see here, Mercury is debilitated, Moon is debilitated. Okay. So eighth house ka lord and sixth house ka lord, both houses of loss. Now just see how snake is confusion or crisis, is seated in the eighth house of loss. Okay. Sun, which is something related to organization, is approaching this fellow, sixth house again of loss or some issue together. It is seated with Kavipu. So there is a connection between sixth house of loss, eighth house of loss, confusion of crisis related to organization taught by Kavipu. Now the thing is, sixth house lord and eighth house lord are debilitated, weak. So where is the eighth house lord? Moon is here in the eighth Rashi. Moon is debilitated, if you remember. Mercury in the 12th Rashi is debilitated. So what that means is, these guys are weak. If the bad guys are weak, obviously the strong guys are strong. So putting all this together, he will surely get it. Who will help? Fourth house. Where will you get it? Seventh house. Abhi, if you see this, this is seated in the Rashi of Venus. Venus is car. Venus is car, no vehicle. Kavipu's star lord, nakshatra lord, is again Venus. Udayam's lord is Jupiter, nakshatra lord. Udayam ka lord is Jupiter, जो उसके साथ ही बैठा है, so Udayam is very strong. Jupiter is also seated in the fourth house where the person will help. So that person will surely help. He will surely know. Just now, if you can call up Aman and ask him, can you ask him? Did he get to speak to this one? I'll just put it on pause.
Manan के साथ बात करूं.
Whoever is asking with us, that Jadu wala, just ask him. I'll just put it on pause. When you get it, you tell me. I'll unpause it.
Sorry.
I'm putting the recording on pause. Once you get it, I will start it again.
Lost is 7.
Sorry, come again. What did you say? If something
is lost, then the house in which Kavipu is sitting.
No, eighth house.
Eighth house is the house of loss. But how or who will help in finding it?
Where, the fourth house. Fourth
that's
house.
the fourth.
Venus
is up.
અચ્છા સાંભળ, રાકેશ અથવા આપણો ગાડી ધોવા વાળો કોણ છે? એને કર્યો તો શું બોલ્યો એ? અચ્છા, ઓકે. એનું નામ શું છે? ઓકે, હું સામે જઈને જોઈ લઈશ પછી એકવાર. એ સામે રહે છે ને પેલીના ઘરમાં. So now just repeat this.
What I was trying to tell you was, when Udayam, which is the prime, or 10th house, which is the second Arudam, so to say, these two connect with the Karak planet, Karak Bhav, or Karak Bhav ka Lord. When any of these come, three come in, then basically any of these three connect to the this now, what is it called, Udayam or the 10th house. It gives you the connection with them. So you have to see basically this is what I do. Okay, these people just cast a chart like that. I pause for a minute and I just concentrate on that subject, and I actually pray for the whoever is there to help me, and then I cast the chart. So isme kaise na, then the chart will connect over there. So basically kaise ki house of loss once I 8. It is a house of hidden wisdom, secret or whatever. So 8. So eighth house, the eighth house lord has to connect with the Udayam or the 10th house. So either kya tha, it was the Mercury was the Udayam lord. Mercury was approaching this thing. What is it called? Udayam, if you remember that.
Hmm.
So it solves the story. उधर ही मालूम पड़ जाता है कि it is a question of loss. It is a query related to loss. अबे related to what? तो Venus आ गया. Mercury is also I-card in a way. Venus is also placed to I-card in a way. So then you go and dig deeper. Okay. Should I share the cases now? I want to share some cases with you.
Trying to understand how you were finding the location of how to find it or where to find it. So I understood that Venus is ruling the 4th house. So that is the house that will help in finding.
1 minute, I'll share the chat. It's easier to talk. What were you saying? Now you tell me, I'll start marking it as well. What were you saying? Venus is the?
Venus is the lord of the 4th house.
Correct.
That is why it will help in finding the lost object. The 7th house you were considering, is it because Kavipu is sitting
No,
over there? Or?
No, that is just a coincidence that it is there. 7th house is the opposite person. So it has got lost. There is some other person involved. It has either got stolen or it has got lost. Correct?
Okay.
So 7th person is the opposite of you. What is the situation? Abhi udhar hi Kavipu baitha hai. So it is saying that some damage related to that.
If it not got stolen, if it has got lost, then also we look at the 7th house.
7th house is the opposite. 7th house is frankly speaking the answer to the question.
Okay.
Okay, so like this is 1st house, this is 7th house. So if this is the house where the act has been committed, this is the answer to it. If Udayam is the question, 7th house is the answer. That's why I was looking here, and there Barabar Kavipu is seated over there, and Barabar Sun is seated. The Sun is also in a way I-card only, because that is your identity. Na? Sun is identity. So that is why it is seated.
Okay.
Now, what we do is we just go through the cases.
Manish, one more thing. You said who will help, but I remember in one incident you told where it will be found. Somebody had lost a earring in the garden.
8th house is where you will find it. Lost in the 1st house, found in the 8th house.
8th house. Okay, so that you have to do the analysis.
मेरे को थोड़ा करना पड़ेगा. Just now if I spend
no
because I'm getting
no
distracted. That is the problem. So when I sit Shanti se, I'll give you the analysis.
No issue.
Now what we'll do is this we saw. Now let's just take case by case and try to understand the situation. Okay. Can you all see this now? Now we are just going to take simple baby steps. This is the chart, how it looks after I totally clean off that thing. Just now when you saw the chart, there were 10,000 bits. I clean out, it takes me around 5 minutes, and then I start analyzing. So first of all, we identified the Udayam. Now this is a case of, what is this case? Okay, this was a case yesterday when it came. This lady from the astrology group only had put it up. That a very important diary of her husband is misplaced. The husband died 2 days ago, and the diary contains huge cash transactions data, which is very important. Okay, and that has gone missing. Now, how the case was analyzed was basically, see, this is the Udayam. Snake approaching Udayam. Snake is crisis. Snake approaching Udayam, unless it is a case of childbirth or foreign travel, it means crisis. If snake is approaching Udayam, then if it is related to childbirth, whether the wife or the daughter is pregnant, so yes, ho sakta. If that person is going abroad, foreign ke liye, settlement ke liye, so shubh ho sakta. But baki everything else, it is either crisis oblique confusion. Okay? So basically, there is a crisis in the Udayam. Okay. Udayam Lord is Mars. First of all, now Mars rules over which house? This house and this house. Now, if you see here, I have written, I always write down these things, so you don't need to keep calculating. Okay. So basically, it is ruling over 1st house and 8th house. 8th house is the house of loss. 8th house, just now, like I told you, same case. loss. Barabar? Mercury, again here Mercury has come. Mercury is the karak of documentation, third house lord right there. So documentation, diary, notations, book, this is connected here. So first only we can make out that there is a complete crisis related to some communication tool which is lost. Where else is Mars seated? So Mars is seated to the guy who Lord here. Mars is seated in the 11th house and Mars is seated in the 9th house. So 9th house is also the house of, like I told you just now, marriage bolo ya father bolo, whatever it is. So it is in a way related to that person. Where Jupiter is connected here, where Jupiter is connected here. If you see Mars and Jupiter are connected. Mars is the husband. This lady had asked the question. It is her husband, Mars. For a lady, Mars is marriage also and husband also. For a guy, Mars is marriage. It doesn't become the wife. That is Venus. Now, what does this mean? This means that Mars, the husband, Jupiter is always big money. Venus is small money. Okay. So basically, confusion and crisis related to a loss of Mars, your husband. Mars is the husband who's in the picture. Okay. Mars is the husband, and the Lord, the planet which has gone to the 12th house is Sun. Sun gone to the 12th house, 12th house of loss. Sun is your Atma Karak. Atma gone, dead. Uska, Mars के husband का 8th house में loss हुआ है. Ketu again drain. Ketu is also some legality issues. Related to what? Loss related to was Mercury. Mercury is a book. Mercury is your notes. Mercury is your documentation. Udayam Lord rules over which house? These two houses. Udayam Lord is seated where? It is seated here in the 11th house of gain. जिसको कविपु ने पकड़ लिया. Udayam Lord को कविपु ने पकड़ लिया. Very bad. Seated in the 11th house of gains. Seated with Jupiter pertaining to big money. Okay. And at the same time, Mars is also seated here in the 9th house. For the wife, 9th house, I told you sometime back, is the documentation of marriage. So something related to marriage. Mars, uska husband, connected with Jupiter, which is big money. Again, Venus. Understood this? Now here, since this Prithivin's case is also here, I will just go a little further to make you explain this thing. If वो कैसे analyze किया था further I told, because if you see here I have written the entire thing. I'll send it to you, read it later on. Now from here the person who will be able to help is 4. Okay, 4. Saturn is approaching 4. Saturn का कारक तत्व is either low paid employee or an employee. Servant भी हो सकता है. Servant, low paid employee or employee, all that comes under Saturn, because Saturn is also karak of career, job. Okay. And if you see, Saturn and Sun have got a parivartan. This is Sun ka house. This is Saturn ka house. Sun is seated in the Saturn ka house and Saturn is seated in the Sun ka house. So there is a Saturn and Sun ka parivartan over here. Whenever there is a parivartan, there is some switch of things, exchange of hands. Saturn is who? Servant. Sun is who? Boss. Boss is who? Or husband. Seated in the 10th house of second Udayam. There is a switch between the father, or the boss, the husband, and the servant. Okay. Now, what has got this thing? What has got swapped over there? Mercury is seated here. Saturn is seated here. Mercury is the book. Mercury is what was lost here. So the servant or the employee has taken it and kept it somewhere. And the loss is the loss of the Sun, 12th house. You understand how this was analyzed? So basically, I have frankly speaking not reached that level where I can pinpoint. Though I have told them that it is in the south, I told them, because that is based on certain planet ka and the Rashi's ka direction. I have got a calculation which I may have sent there. So, but let's forget that we are still understanding this. I also got into the flow of Manantati, so mera dhyan udhar hi aata. But what I'm trying to say is, if you connect the dots, no, it starts telling you the story. Okay. Now let us not go very deep. I will. Shikra, you want to ask something? Shikra, are you asking something?
No,
हाँ, okay. One minute. I think my volume, मेरा volume कम हो गया क्या सर? For some reason, my volume keeps dipping. Abhi volume is better. No? Why the volume keeps dipping? Okay, now let's see another case. Okay, I've got around 4 or 5 cases. I'll just share that with you. Now this is a very funny case. Okay, this yesterday, let's call her my client only, young girl who used to come to me for the dowsing thing. So she called her. She's from Nepal. She's gone back to Nepal some months back or a year back. And again, in 10 minutes में जाने वाला है. So let's do it fast or we can come back again. You all want to come back again? You all have time for another 15-20 minutes? All of you? Okay. So let's see how much of you can go, then we come back. Now this girl messaged me to say that Rahu and Moon is in the 3rd house, so tummy related problem है क्या? उसका उपाय क्या है? तो ऐसे suddenly in the हवे में पूछ के ऐसा I don't believe in giving generic remedies. No? So I cast this chart and it told me this story. And then she called me from Nepal and she said that it is related to her boyfriend. Now just see how this entire thing opened up. Okay. I put it per se related to the situation. I don't make it very specific. I make it generic. ये situation इसके बारे में मेरे को बताओ. And this chart came. Now this got switched to her boyfriend का chart. तो कैसे देखो? Udayam again here. Every time last few cases Udayam is coming here only. I don't know why. And Udayam moves every hour, so it's a very funny thing. I don't know what it is trying to tell us. Anyway, Udayam यहाँ पर है. Jupiter is approaching Udayam. Jupiter is any big organ in the body which doesn't have any bones in it. It can be considered as Jupiter. So stomach becomes Jupiter. Okay. Now if you see, Udayam, Kavipu is in the 7th house. Okay. And it is catching sun. It is catching its own lord only. Okay. Second thing is, if just now what I told Chitra was that the house pakadne ka, so house kaun sa hai? House of illness is 6th house. 6th house ka lord is moon. Moon is stomach. Okay, moon is stomach. Now where is moon seated? Moon is seated in the 8th house of big illness. Something which is not like a sardi kasi ek do din ka, but something which I don't know what you call it, something which is a prolonged illness. Okay. So basically, what this story is telling me that the Udayam, okay, is approached by Jupiter. So something related to big organ in the body which doesn't have this thing, what is it called, bone. Opposite person में उसके boyfriend के घर में वो crisis है. Okay, उसके boyfriend के house में crisis है. Illness related to what? Moon, which is stomach. Where is moon seated? Moon is seated here in the 8th house of this thing. And moon is seated where? In the 4th house. 4th house is also the chest and stomach area. But more of a chest area. जहाँ पर राहु भी है. Rahu is Dhruva. Kavipu is catching sun. Sun is heat. Pitta. So I immediately asked her, is this guy suffering from Pitta? So she said, yes, he is suffering from Pitta. That is the cause of it all. Now, who will be able to help? 4th house. Moon, Mars, seated in the house of Venus. Okay. So Venus is ruling over the 4th house. Venus is ruling over the 9th house. Now make a note. 9th house in a medical case is the medicine. 9th house in a medical case is the medicine. Okay. So 4th house is where she will get the help from. Who will help? Moon will help. Moon in connection with Rahu. So what is Moon? Moon is a senior lady. Okay, some mother or mother-like age ka is a lady. With Rahu, what is Rahu? Rahu is something unconventional. Seated in the domain of Venus. Venus is Shukracharya, Ayurveda. also ruling over the 9th house of medicine. Okay, seated in the 11th house, inside outside, देखो इधर, inside outside of gains. So if she uses Venus ka technology, which is Ayurveda, she will get gains, benefit, okay, from the medicine, which will be given to her by a senior lady who deals in something unconventional. So ये जड़ी बूटी वाले वाले कोई तो भी रहेगी, it must be some senior lady. So I said, do you know anyone? She says, I'm not aware of somebody. I said, search it out. That is the one who will be able to help you. And that also happens to be, moon also happens to be the 6th house lord. So 6th house lord is the one who is going to help. Clear? You've got five.
Manish,
हाँ जी.
you have written moon in that lavender color. How it came there, that I
No,
don't.
that lavender thing. I see there are. If you see the green chart, which is the original chart, and if you see here, there is a huge difference. उसमें मैं क्या add on करता हूँ ना, वो जो तड़का जो डालता हूँ, एक तो मैं 1 2 3 4 8 डालता हूँ, तो माता खुजाना नहीं पड़ता कि 7th के 8th उसमें. Second thing what I do is the कारक planet या कारक भाव, उसको मैं वो purple color से identify करता हूँ. So what it is so Mercury, what was that? The moon was there, right?
Moon.
So 6th house was the house of illness. Just not like I was telling Shipra, the house of illness. So house of illness was the 6th. I need to catch 6th. So 6th का कौन my बाप है? तो my बाप moon है. इसलिए मैंने उसको purple किया. Then my नजर should go to moon कहाँ पर बैठा? Like that.
Okay, understood.
Next class, what I will be doing is I will be telling you how to understand my nomenclature. So you can either follow it because I have done a lot of Mata Podi on that, or you can adapt it to your style to
No,
make
we'll
whatever
follow yours. It will be easier.
हाँ वैसे ही. तो मैं क्या करता हूँ, इसका जो डेटा आता है ना, ये करता हूँ, बाकी सब निकाल देता हूँ. That takes me around 4 minutes. I've counted it. If I do cut 4 minutes लगता है मेरे को to get the chart ready. Then I start talking. But it makes my life very easy.
Yeah.
Okay, what? There are 3 or 4 more charts. Do you want me to continue on that, or this much is enough for today? Should we continue? Shikra, what is your scene? Pritiben, Arvind,
I'm fine.
okay, so let us just. I'm just stopping.